we shall be starting soon. We'll just give it a short while. And just to remind everybody that this conversation will be live streamed on the Fight Inequality Alliance's YouTube channel. So do feel free to watch it after it's done. And yeah, you can reflect back on the conversation that we're going to have. So just give it a couple of minutes for more people to join, and then we shall start. Hey, we seem to be getting more people in the room. Just another minute so that we hopefully get to 30 and more. I can see many people are coming in. Okay, so again, good morning, good afternoon for those that are joining from a different time zone, and good evening. Welcome again to everyone who has joined us on Zoom and those who are also watching us live on YouTube. Welcome to the launch of the Global Day to Fight Inequality, which we have aptly dubbed Red Card to Inequality. My name is Martha Tukahirwa, and I'm the Africa Regional Coordinator. I'm based in Uganda, and I'll be your host slash moderator for today. The aim of this event is to build awareness, to keep building momentum of inequality as a shared goal, and shared global challenge that connects diverse struggles, and also call for collective solidarity, collective action towards a global economy that is for the people and the planet. We have a very fantastic lineup of 6 speakers today who will share with us their experiences and their deep commitment to fighting inequality. And my hope is that we shall all be able to take away from each of their sharings. I will quickly just go through the house rules before we dive into the conversation. On the screen, you will see that there's a slide, maybe Moise, you can just go back to that previous slide, where we are requesting, just a second. Yeah, so please do feel free to use the chat as you feel comfortable. Share your name, where you're located, which movement you're affiliated with. We're requesting that all, if you're not a speaker, kindly keep your microphone muted. And we shall also request that we keep this as safe a space for everybody here. And we have zero tolerance on anything that is against our safeguarding policies and in line with the movement. I'm excited to see more people joining from different parts of the world, and I'm excited that we're going to have a great conversation. So we'll just dive into this because we have about an hour and a half to have this conversation. So for this first round, I am going to invite speakers to introduce themselves and answer the biggest question today, which is why do we need a global day to fight inequality? Looking at the context of where you are organizing from. We do have a lineup of 6 speakers, so I will call each one of you as we go, and then you can just go ahead, introduce yourself, and then respond to the question at hand. So I will now take this opportunity to invite Carol. Carol Nganga, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carol Nganga, founder and team lead at Msingi Trust. I also serve as part of the National Council of Kenya, and I serve as the national convener for Kenya Fight Inequality Alliance. So yeah, Kenyan, and there are so many reasons as to why we need a global day to fight inequality, but for me, the main one, there are two main ones that I'll speak about. The first one is we need to bear witness and offer solidarity. To bear witness to the greed and offer solidarity with the plight of the poor. With the refrain that there's no ethical billionaires, we need to remind the world that these billions are accumulated through underpaying laborers and exploiting the resources of the world. The other aspect of it I will share from our Fight Inequality partner, Oxfam. Oxfam Kenya produced a report that we can share on the chat, but I will share like some of the stats that they shared. First, that in Kenya's inequality in numbers is the richest 125 individuals have more wealth than 42.6 million Kenyans, which is bottom 77%. The second one is the richest 1% took nearly 2/5 of the total new wealth created between 2019 and 2023, which is more than the new wealth taken by the bottom 90%, and 13 times more than that of the bottom 50%. The third one is that the richest 1% grew their wealth nearly 2 times faster than the bottom 99% between 2013 and 2023. The fourth one, since 2019, the average net wealth of a person in the richest 1% in Kenya has increased by 22%, while that of a person in the bottom 50% has dropped by 4%. The fifth one, reducing inequality at a rate of 2% annually, accompanied by 2% annual growth rate, would triple the rate of extreme poverty reduction compared to 2% economic growth alone. Thus, the richest 1% of Kenya owns 78% of Kenya's total financial wealth. Those statistics are harrowing and very disturbing and unsustainable. And so we need to speak that out, bear witness, and yeah, that's why we need a global day to fight inequality.
Thank you so much, Carol, for starting us strong in terms of sharing the alarming statistics, but also really giving us a very clear call to action on bearing witness and offering solidarity. At this point, I will invite Maliha to go ahead, introduce yourself, and also highlight your response on why we need a global day to fight inequality. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone on this day and this event, which is very relevant on our struggles, on whatever we face on our daily life. Basically, this event and this day reminds us that inequality looks different depending on I'm sorry, where you live, what you earn, and what are the shared resources you claim within your region, within your country, and within your neighborhood. I, as a queer community leader in Pakistan, we organize support and care building programs with women and queer communities. Our inequality is not only about income. It is about whether we can safely exist, because this is a really big question mark. the safety and
seem to have lost.
to exist is very challenging in today's. So many women and queer people are am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead. We seem to have lost you for a second there.
Okay. So I was saying that many women and queer people are rejected by their families already, denied education, excluded from employment, unable to rent a home, and afraid to access to the basic healthcare needs because of the discrimination and stigma. This is the huge inequality we face, and this is extremely criminalized in Pakistan. So this should be highlighted on this day, and at the same time, we are seeing shrinking civic spaces in Pakistan, especially in Kashmir and Balochistan. The proxy wars, the civil wars, people are fighting with each other. We need to fight with inequality, and we are fighting here with each other. This is a dilemma. Human rights defenders, students, journalists, and community organizers face increasing pressure when they speak out. It's because the shrinking civic spaces we have been witnessing so far. When civic spaces shrink, it becomes even harder for marginalized people to demand their rights and basic needs from the institutions and to hold them accountable. So, for me, inequality means far more than reducing poverty. Uh, reducing inequality is very much important than reducing poverty, because it means that ensuring that everyone, regardless of their gender identity, ethnicity, religion, background, or anything that counts, can live with dignity, participate in society, and speak with confidence and without any fear. This is where equality matters. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maliha, for giving us a different dimension on where inequality is about survival, but also the bigger question on stigma, on accountability, and what we seem to be seeing in different contexts, which is shrinking civic space, and also really giving us a very clear example of what the lived experiences of the queer community in Pakistan, for example, are facing. Thank you for that, Maliha. At this juncture, I'll now invite Rajan Subedi to go ahead and share.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of my experience. So, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So, based on your locations, so I'm Rajan Subedi. So, I'm the program manager in Oxfam in Nepal. So, and I'm also a focal point for Nepal Country Inequality Report 2026. So, Oxfam Nepal is also developing a report on country inequality report since 2019. So now, so looking at the questions on so why we need a global day to fight inequality. So from my experience in Nepal's water governance, so if you look at on that topic, then inequality is visible in who has access to water, whose voices are heard in decision making, and who bears the greatest impact of climate change. So these are clearly visible. So this is why Global Day to Fight Inequality is so important. It reminds us that inequality is not just about income. It is about unequal access to opportunities, essential services, and the natural resource, even in decision-making power. So in Nepal, if you look it in deep, the structural inequalities are linked to geography, and it also linked to gender, caste, ethnicity, disability. As you know, like the former colleagues has also clearly mentioned that there are different ways of inequalities that continue to leave many people behind. So climate change is further widening these inequalities. So with the poor and most marginalized communities facing the greatest risks, despite contributing the least to the problem. So that means, as Oxfam's research globally, we can see that also reminds us that wealth is becoming increasingly concentrated. So not only in each country, but at globally, with number of millionaires continuing to grow, while the gap between the richest and the poorest remains significant. So at the same time, many poor and marginalized communities continue to struggle to have their concerns reflected in development decisions. If I give you an example of infrastructural development, so their livelihood, land, and voices are often overlooked, even not talked at all. So a global day to fight inequality, therefore, serves as an important reminder, I would say, because this is a good reminder that development must be people centered, must be inclusive and right based. So it creates an opportunity to raise awareness, though people might be, like not knowing it or unknowingly ignoring it or knowingly ignoring it. So it helps to strengthen our public dialogue, so generate evidences and encourage government and all stakeholders to take concrete action. Therefore, I would say that the development must be meaningful, and we must build a society where every person enjoys their human right and has an equal opportunity to thrive, so that no one is left behind. So that's why I would say that this is an important day, not to be celebrated one day, but it should be celebrated on everywhere where we act. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajan. No, you've actually given us a very clear reminder that it's not only about the one day, but keep reminding us that we need to really make sure that development is people-centered. But also, you've brought in the dimension of climate change and what water governance looks like within the context of Nepal. And I think that's a different dimension again to inequality away from income inequality. So thank you so much for that, Rajan. We'll now swiftly move to Sigit. Oh yeah, great. Sigit, you're here. Sigit, please go ahead, unmute yourself and share. First of all, introduce yourself and then respond to the question at hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sigit. I'm based in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Now I serve as a co-coordinator of VIA Indonesia. And also I work with KRUHA, People's Coalition for the Rights to Water, for campaigning and advocating water as a fundamental human rights and also we're focusing on the impact of water privatization and the protection of water resources for marginalized communities. We work also on the climate justice issues and opposing the extractivism that right now rising in Indonesia to protect the local communities from the corporate interests. The first question, I think, why do we need the Global Day to fight inequality? So we see that the Global Day to fight inequality has become important for Indonesia. So we see this day to highlight and start to do the political pressure on equality because Indonesia, as a country with very real inequality, I mean, for example, the 50 richest people in Indonesia is equal to the 55 millions in Indonesia, according to Celios on the wealth. And also at the same time, the workers' wages barely increase while the top wealth keeps growing rapidly. And public services, for example, also remain limited and even discriminatory against the poor. And there are significant disparities in ownership of asset and land and so on. And this year we celebrate the Global Day to fight inequality in several areas, which are Yogyakarta, a province with poverty rates tend to be higher than the national average, and then there's a regional minimum wage, like the standard of from the government to for the wages that had historically in Yogyakarta tended to be lower than the other industrial areas on Java Island, which is not directly proportional to the rate of the inflation and the increase of in the cost of living. And then there's also very striking economic gap for each region in Yogyakarta in this province, and we see there's still a problem regarding the economic dualism. So Yogyakarta has a rapidly growing modern economic sector, but traditional sector like agriculture and micro scale still dominate the workforce with lower incomes. And then also we will have, we already have action in Jakarta, also one of the province with the highest inequality in Indonesia. The expenditure of the 40% of the lowest income groups is very low in contrast to the concentration of turnover and asset in the hands of the upper class economic group. And then also there's a domination and land control or occupation by corporation, leaving pockets of dense and slum settlement that are not suitable for habitation. Also, there's a limitation access to basic service and rights that are difficult for poor people to access. And the other thing is about the serious threats from the ecological crisis. And then we will have action in Semarang, a city with the highest per capita income in Central Java, also the city with the highest poverty rate in the province in Central Java. And the last one, we will have action in Malang, a region with the high infrastructure gaps between high gender inequality index at the district level, also the income disparities that separate dense urban areas from the suburban areas. So that's the reason that we see that this stays very important for us to do the campaign. Do we need to? Sorry, do I have to the second question or only?
No, it's okay. We shall come to the second question
sorry.
at a later time. But thank you so much, Sigit.
Yeah, thank you.
You've really helped us, paint a picture of what the context is in Indonesia, really speaking about access to water, protection of water resources, this bigger piece of more people are becoming, poorer while less, a smaller percentage of people continue to amass, a lot of wealth. And then, of course, this bigger ecological crisis as part of climate change that is being witnessed. So thank you so much. I know at a later point we shall now sort of make the switch to, why we need collective action. So at this point, I will now invite Gerance Mutwol. Gerance, are you here? Yes, you are, from Greenpeace. Please go ahead, introduce yourself, and then you can respond to the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. Hi, everyone. Wonderful conversation going on here. And I'm Gerance Mutwol. I'm an environmental scientist, and at the same time leading a team on Fair Share, which is a global campaign at Greenpeace that talks about taxation of high net worth individuals to fund nature. So technically going head on to these people who are exacerbating inequality. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya, and the beauty of being based in Nairobi, Kenya is like Carol has already set the stage for us, and I don't need to add much more. Also thinking of the time, and I'm sure like other parts of the world needs to talk more about this. This day, fighting inequality, it's literally fighting for our own survival. It is us making sure that the human race still exists in this planet. I think Wangari Maathai, who's the Nobel Peace Prize awardee from Kenya, said like economy and environment are two sides of the same coin. You cannot do one without the other. And the way things are going on, definitely economy is not nearly the same sides of environment. And I'm going to talk about the high net worth individuals, for example, even in Kenya and in Africa in general, because I represent Greenpeace Africa. The high net worth individuals are the ones causing these inequality a lot, and this can go through fast. We see, for example, things like mining. They don't even give a damn about where that mining is going. For example, the Galamsey, the Congo Basin forest, even here in Kenya at some point, like the mining is destroying our rivers. These rivers, people depend on it. For example, less than 30% of Kenya is arable land, and these are where the islands are, and you are cutting a lot of trees. And when you go down to check who are these people, they are multinational corporations. And if you check, they're paying even less taxes. They're dodging taxes because of the tax loopholes that are there. So it's a lived reality among the people. It's something that we all live towards each and every day, and it's a must for us because definitely we all need drinking water. We all need rain because we do mostly rain-fed agriculture. We need to make sure that energy, you like have enough energy. For example, use hydroelectric power here in Kenya. If like siltation happens in our dams, renewable energy is out. That's energy poverty. So it's not something that is so far away. It's a lived reality with us. And so if we don't stand up at this moment to make sure that the things that these high net worth individuals and also multinational corporations that are benefiting from our own death, it's not even like it's literally our own death because you're signing our own like will to die. So it's a must for us to organize. It's a must for us to rise up and make sure that they don't take our own survival. And I'll stop there for now.
Well, thank you so much, Gerance. I think you've given us already what we need to do in terms of collective solidarity. So standing up, rising up against, the high net worth individuals. Carol talked about unethical accumulation of wealth, which you've, really talked about, and what we're seeing in terms of tax evasion, them not thinking about what the value chain is when we think about freshwater resources. Thank you for that, Gerance. And lastly, in this segment, I will invite Thobile. Thobile, please go ahead and share with us.
Hi, everyone. So wonderful to be here with you. My name is Thobile Chittenden, and I am part of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. So that is a global alliance where we bring people together who are building and designing economies that are in service of life, and that is people and planet. So that's the global role that I have, but I'm very involved in my local community here in Johannesburg in South Africa, which is called Makers Valley. And today, I think, is a real reason for why we need days like Global Days for Fighting Inequality, because as Gerance was saying, that the repercussions are dire. They are extreme and they can result in death. And obviously in South Africa, we have one of the highest inequalities in the world. We have the richest of the rich, but the poorest of the poor. And on today, 30th of June, is what people are calling the national shutdown, which is really coming from terrible xenophobic sentiments that poor Africans that have come to South Africa are the ones that are creating essentially this inequality. And obviously, the advocacy is so crucial at moments like this, where we can showcase and highlight that actually this is people putting or pitting the poorest South Africans against the poorest Africans. And that is really, really not the case. We should be directing our anger upwards to the 1% that actually own the power and the wealth and that have designed this economic system of extraction and exploitation. And the ones that are fighting with one another are the ones that are really suffering from this extraction. And so I'm really emotional today because I can see firsthand what is happening. My community is 60% non-South African, but it's Pan-African. And there's a real sense of fear this morning, a sense of who are we as Africans? Like what has happened to us and our solidarity, our sister and brotherhood. And so I think days like this, or the Day of Inequality on the 4th of July, is a day where we can find each other once again. We need to come back together and remember that these inequalities are shared. A lot of what my colleagues have already said are across the board. It's something that we feel as South Africans. And so these experiences that we are facing are shared experiences. And so, yes, there definitely is this vertical inequality that is so pressing at the moment in South Africa. But of course, we also have this horizontal experience of inequality, right? We have race, which is still a huge issue in South Africa, where the top 1% that own most of the wealth in our country are still the minority of people that live here. And also there's spatial inequalities. So the legacy that apartheid has left us is us living, obviously the poorest of the poor, still living in spaces where there is no development, there is no access to water, etc., sanitation, etc. And so all of these types of inequalities are things that we need to recognize and things that we need to bring to the forefront, and remember that it's not us who are facing these inequalities that have designed them. It is the people that are in power. And so for me, these days of fighting inequality is really tackling the economic system, saying we need to go back to the design of it to ensure that actually our design of the economy should be serving equality. It should be serving dignity and justice. It should ensure participation of all. It should recognize the human and the more than human. And so for me, and I guess for South Africans today, it's important for us to raise that up, raise that as a huge banner in the sky, to remind people that we are going to refuse the sentiment or the narratives that they're trying to bring and fear-mongering and telling us, no, it's the other person that's taking your jobs, or it's the other person from your continent that's bringing drugs, or whatever these false narratives are. Because what we're starting to see is that actually people are singing from the same hymn book. And these repercussions that we are facing in South Africa, it's actually being spread across the world. People are using in different countries migrants as the problem for the inequalities that are being faced in those countries. And so actually, when you start to see and connect all the dots, you see this is actually not an isolated thing. It definitely is people with power using these fear-mongering tactics to create division, to create isolation. And so we need days like this that can bring us together, that can bring solidarity, and for us to recognize that we are fighting together and that we have power. Like, we are not going to cower. We have power to fight with one another. I'll end there.
Thank you so much, Thobile. Wow, you have really closed this off very beautifully, but also really giving us a reminder. And I like what you asked when you said, who are we as Africans? And how are we fighting these remnants of some of the hardest injustices that we have faced of our generation. So, the remnants of apartheid, for example, whilst people are seeking, economic freedom, and these are migrants, they're actually being turned against each other, and then also really, hammering in that point on this is about survival. I know Gerance said that, at this point, if we're allowing multinational corporations to come in and do what they want with our forests, with our natural resources, we're actually signing a death sentence. So the call to action here is that we need to rise up. We need to call for a complete overhaul of the system, so that we have a system that actually serves justice, equality. And yeah, so thank you so much, Thobile. I appreciate that, and I believe everyone does on this call. So I know this first round was really sort of setting the stage for now diving into very specific questions based on where you are sharing from, based on your context. And I have tried to, sort of summarize from each of the speakers. And now we're going to take a shift into, why is inequality why is it a defining issue of our time? I know many of you have sort of started to share around this question, but this is specifically to Rajan and Carol. But I will still invite folks that are on the call to kindly share your questions, reflections in the chat. And just a reminder that this conversation is being live streamed on YouTube. And so we shall keep an eye on there to see if there's anything that is arising from the conversations there. So Rajan, maybe you'll go first, and maybe we'll just give it, because we're running behind time, so maybe 3 minutes to just share why inequality is a defining issue of our time. And after Rajan, Carol, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So at this point, like, inequality is not a future risk, I would say. So it is today's, like, live reality, lived reality. So it lies at the heart of many today's global challenges like poverty, climate change, food insecurity, and even unequal access to opportunities. So it is not just about income, as I said earlier. So it is more about who has access to resources, services, and even, like, who decides and who is left behind. So as I work in Nepal and I work in South Asia through this Transform the Rivers of South Asia project, what I have also observed is, so the people, so they are they are being affected by geography and even the gender, the caste, ethnicity, the disability, and even the climate vulnerability. I would like to give you an example from Nepal. So if I talk about the far west region of Nepal, which is like 1 hour flight from Kathmandu to Dhangadi, and from where it requires like 18 to 12 hours drive. So if you look at those communities, very poor family community, they live along the river banks because they have limited livelihood options and less access to safer land. So every year they are disproportionately affected by floods, river erosion, and other climate-related disasters. So despite experiencing repeated losses, many continue to receive inadequate support because either they are ignored, their voice is ignored, or government, like, say that they are living in the river bank. So they receive inadequate support for recovery, adaptation, and long-term resilience. So this is an example of how inequality and climate change reinforce each other. So if we are very serious, like, giving an example, like, on sustainable development, we must move beyond responding to disaster and address these structural inequalities that has been created by the government and those communities who are more vulnerable than others. So it is not their choice. So it is by the system that has created. So I think for this, it requires evidence-based policies, inclusive governance, and ensuring that voice of women and youth and marginalized communities are the part of decision making. Because in most of the cases, those voice has been neglected. So at Nepal context, what we are trying to do is, as being the part of and working with the NGO Federation of Nepal. So that's a broad network of civil society organization. We are developing this inequality report where we'll try to generate evidences, so elevate voice and bring together the policymakers and the development partners, so to work on this. So my concluding point, like, looking at my time is, so fighting inequality is a shared responsibility, I would say. So we must build a society where every person's voice is respected, opportunity is fairly distributed, and development is inclusive and climate resilient and right based. So the global day to fight inequality should be more than a day of reflection. It should create a catalyst for a collective action, I would say. And I will conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajan. I'll sort of tie everything together after you have shared, Carol, so please go ahead.
Loving the conversations that we are having already. So the reality, one of the realities as I was thinking about this question was that first, we are experiencing a live streaming of inequality globally. We are seeing what it means on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. Inequality is being live streamed, and sometimes you see that the very ultra rich have no problem showing off their wealth, their ill-gotten wealth. So the live streaming of poverty is one that just makes me angry. And the live streaming of corruption, the live streaming of poverty, the live streaming of just exploitation. That's the first one. The other part is that we are seeing that there's quite an increase in the political interference on by the super rich on social services and politics. We have seen what Elon Musk has been able to do, and we've seen, and there are many versions of Elon Musk's in our countries where the super rich are investing in governance and not for the people, but to facilitate the protection of the interests of the economic, the super rich, the ones who are maintaining the economy, who don't want anyone to get into their 1%. So why do we want to let the super rich be the ones who are ruling our ecosystems, our politics, our economics? Because it is always for them, capital first, people never. But I think for me, the other part is that's tied to the super rich is that big corporates are now taking on services that government used to offer. So when governments have abdicated their responsibilities and their commitments, and why we pay taxes to them is that they offer public social services. And so you find prisons are being privatized, you find water is being privatized, you find land is now being given to this rich corporates. And so we cannot sit and wait for government to just hand over everything that we've given them a responsibility to the super rich. And so, yeah, I feel like it's the very first time ever since this form of democracy has happened that governments are really saying these public-private partnership deals that are just exploitations and governments abdicating their responsibility. So for me, it is because one, the government is abdicating their responsibilities, and two, it's a defining issue because we are seeing it live streamed. And the second is that the rich keep getting richer and taking over our political systems.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you, Rajan. I'll just quickly, pick up a common thread in what we are sharing. So definitely what we're seeing is that the high net worth individuals, the people that have a lot of money are putting capital first and people last. but also in line with what governance, should be counter, right? So whilst we're thinking about provision of social services for everybody, where we're thinking about schools for young people, hospitals, it's actually a question of, how do the poor remain marginalized, and how do the rich continue to gain more and more unethically? And I like what you said, Carol, about live streaming of inequality. We're seeing it happen before us every single day. And that's alarming, right? And what's even worse is that we're seeing that political interference. And Rajan, you actually said that what needs to be happening now is the amplification of the voices of those that are most marginalized, the women, the children, but also continue to apply an intersectional lens when we're thinking about what collective solidarity looks like. How do we think about gender, caste, access to opportunities, And I think it's a question of who decides. Rajan, you asked that, who decides and who is left behind. So thank you both for sharing around that question. And I'm hoping that the next speakers will sort of continue the thread so that we're sort of creating a picture or a tapestry of what we're dealing with when we say that we need a global day to fight inequality. So at this point, we're going to now switch to more, not solution, but why do we need collective action? And Maliha, I will invite you and Sigit to share why we need collective action, why it's imperative at this moment. And I'll just give you about, again, 2 or 3 minutes to be concise in your sharing, so that we are managing time, but also listening from everyone.
Thank you for this. It's a very relevant question. Thank you for inviting me to speak about it. First of all, the collective action starts from accountability, and accountability starts at individual level. Like in all the poverty, inflation, unemployment, and discrimination we are facing in the current modern world, it affects from individual to the community level. In order to mitigate with such challenges, we learn from our experience, from our queer community problems in Pakistan. We saw that we can build community care practices and support to each other at societal level, at community level, and it grows to the national and international level also. The solidarity within the queer community is at its peak, because we are facing that queer community, wherever they are always like together and sharing the solidarity with each other. It's a basic mutual community support to each other. Also, collective action is not only about raising our voices and having protests, but it is also about building alternatives while demanding systematic change. Building alternatives, again, it depends on creating support and care networks for each other at community level, at national level. Also, it's something we can practically do. It also creates strength, and it transforms individual struggles into public issues, and then which policymakers can no longer ignore, because this is how we saw that that's how protest begins, that's how movement begins. So it all starts on the individual level and creating enabling environment for each other, so that we all can grow and we all can live peacefully.
Thank you so much, Maliha. Sigit, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We see that this collective action from the grassroots networks and other people's power network is crucial in this moment, because we in VIA Indonesia see this era as an era of a global socio-ecological crisis because of the penetration of the capitalism is so deep. So the crisis is an issues that integrated in the system. So we cannot you know, we cannot see that this is just an impact or just the following issues that following the capitalism system itself. And aside of that, we see this is an era of the hyperpolitical issues where the politics has lost its soul and essence with the various political action and entertainment that failed to address the root of societal problems. So the political action without political consequences is futile. So this is similarly, it is nearly impossible to expect change from Indonesian oligarch regime that we see right now. They are continues to concentrate economic and political power. So the collective action is very crucial, very important, because it's not only accept the political pressure, but also to foster the political education and the solidarity amongst the communities, the network that become the alternative power, the alternative political power to address this issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sigit. I thank you both for, again, now bringing this into more of what needs to happen. What do we need to start seeing? And you, Sigit, you say that political consequences are futile, and we're seeing the oligarchs are really concentrating their political power, but also influencing what governance looks like. And all this is morphing into this social and ecological crisis that we're seeing. But then, Maliha, you then say that, accountability should start from us individually, and then build on forward, through the community. And we're already seeing that, and we have a very good example of what we're seeing with the queer community that have strong solidarity. They have created this, care network, which is an alternative. And so one of the ways in which we can take collective action is, continue to build these alternatives. And yeah, so thank you so much both for sharing. Now we are going to request Gerance and Thobile to now share what does meaningful change look like. And again, please feel free to share from, where you sit, where you experience, where you lead from. Maybe Gerance, will you start, and then Thobile after?
I think any can do. But Thobile, do you want to take that? And I give that chance to you, or I should go on?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on the big
Okay.
screen.
Lol. Oh, I see. Oh gosh. So there's so many ways of how we would love to see this utopia or alternative world that you need to live in. But the main thing is, like, this inequality is structural. It's not by accident or anything. And we can start at the global level. Yeah, the global financial architecture is messed up at the moment. How it's even made is made like for the ultra rich to always win. You don't even have a chance to get there. And before you get to that club, you have to really make sure that also the people who are under you are underpaid, or you extract resources without like paying a fair share of taxes and all that. But we all don't have that chance. If we do that to our own world, then definitely we'll not even have a place to sit. So one of the things that now we are calling for example, I think Oxfam report in 2020, I think January 2026, said the IMF recommendation out of the 3,000, only 3% of it was talking about taxation of wealth or high net worth individuals. Then the rest, especially for like global majority countries, was 100% regressive taxation. So definitely with that type of financial architecture, you're not going to win. That's it. So now, but we have a chance. We have the UN Tax Convention that is being negotiated right now. And Africa Group is the one that kind of brought this to the limelight, knowing that, yeah, we've suffered a lot as a continent and also as a part of the global majority. And now we need to make sure that we overhaul this. How do we make sure that, first of all, the multinational corporations that are working here, like cobalt is mostly found in, for example, DRC. We have titanium. We have like a lot of minerals that are like literally driving this global economy. But when you see where these minerals are being mined, no anything that is happening there, like the people who are living there are facing health issues, they're facing land rights issues and all those things. So now, how do they pay taxes and pay their fair share of what they own to where they're happening? So allocation of taxing rights and also making sure that multinational corporations pay their fair share of taxes where they're actually they are working on, like where they're extracting all these things. So how do we move from extractivism also to now like working closely with communities is one of the things that we need to continue pushing in our call for to stop inequality. The second thing is taxation of high net worth individuals. So at Greenpeace, we worked on a report, a beautiful report called the Understanding the Climate, like how extreme wealth is driving climate crisis. And we found out that even at the billionaires level, there's literally inequality. So it's not our own problem, by the way. Even at the billionaire level right now, Elon Musk is a trillionaire. So he's like looking at other people like they have nothing and something of the sort. So, and the disparity between how extreme wealth is driving climate crisis between these two like areas of like centimillionaires and multi-billionaires is very like light and day. And I'll share that also on the chat for you to go and read for yourself. It's an amazing piece of work that shows like even the climate crisis, when you're told about you need to take less, like take short showers or don't turn on AC and all those things. And there's someone who's like having 10 yachts, having 10 private jets, moving nearly at the same time. So like Elon Musk's doing like the round trip to the orbit, like literally that just one rocket launch is equivalent to several long-haul flights for just 15 minutes. So now this shows you how these high net worth individuals are driving the climate crisis and creating this inequality that you're having. First of all, making sure that just to answer your question, overhaul of the international like financial architecture, and number two is to push for progressive taxation, and number three is like, yes, taxation of high net worth individuals, and this money should be earmarked to works towards not promoting tax evasion, but rather earmarked towards making sure that we fund the future that we all need. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Gerance. Fantastic. Thank you. Thobile, please go ahead, and then again, I'll tie it all together.
Sure. Thanks, Martha, and thanks, Gerance. Yeah, always insightful to hear you. I'm going to just be like practical and give 4 principles that I think would help. Just imagining the people that are watching this, you might be at different levels of society in different spaces and contexts. And I think these principles can apply no matter where you are. If you're working on the global infrastructure of finance, or if you're working in a community organization, I think these principles of an alternative economy can still apply in your context. So we speak about 4 Ps. And the first P is thinking about the purpose of our economy. I think we have to remind ourselves that the economy, even the word economia, really just means the management of our home. And how we should manage that home should be for the benefit of everyone that lives in it, which is all of us on this planet Earth. And this is really something I'm passionate about because I'm very ordinary. I'm not an economist. I'm not a policymaker. I'm just a community activist that has landed in this space. And I think so often when we hear this word economy, we think, oh no, it's for the economists to be part of that conversation. We need everyone. Everyone has a role to play in designing and shaping and having a voice in what the purpose of the economy should be. And that goes back to our values. What are our values? What are the things that we want to see this economy serve? And you can ask that in your business, you can ask that in your community, you can ask that in your country, if you're in national government, wherever it might be. Ask, what is the purpose of this? And I think for many people, obviously it's contextual and nuanced depending which countries are you in, but we want dignity, we want justice, we want participation, we want connection. All of these things speak to our values, right? But the biggest thing that we are seeing for purposes for economies across the world is GDP and growth. That's all you hear on the news and the media. We need growth, we need GDP. And it's been a false narrative because actually, as even when countries are growing, we can still see inequalities continue to increase. If you think about the USA, where they're the richest country in the world, but people are suffering in poverty. And so we really need to dig deep into why GDP. Yes, we can measure it. Yes, if you want to measure production, but actually sometimes production increases when harmful things are taking place, when there's an oil spill, when a tree is chopped down and made into a table. GDP increases because, yes, a table's being made, but it doesn't take into account that there's no longer a tree in that community. There's no longer carbon emissions being taken from the atmosphere. The flooding that takes place in that community is because the tree is no longer there. So GDP doesn't really measure what matters. And so we need to urge our governments, our communities, our companies to measure what really matters. And obviously inequality, if you have soaring rates of inequalities and increasing rates, then we have a serious problem. So we need to measure what matters and think about the purpose. The second P is actually trying to prevent things from the get-go, designing things to prevent harm from happening in the first place. Because what we're seeing now is harm happens, oh, wow, there's a crisis. And now we start to try put a plaster on the wound. And we see that with a lot of redistributive policies. And not to say we shouldn't have that, but we really need to go back to the design. How can we prevent harm from happening in the first place? If we think about circular production, it's a very simple way of thinking about going from a linear production process that creates waste, that creates harm. Instead, go to a circular economy where you actually are using that waste and that waste is seen as valuable. So that's an example of preventing harm. The third P is pre-distribution. And I think this really speaks to what Gerance was speaking about. We need to share power. We need to share wealth. And land is a huge one in South Africa. So how, again, do we design things to pre-distribute these resources, right? And there's things like employee-owned businesses. There's things like people putting nature as a shareholder within their business so that nature is getting a share of the profits. These examples are ways that we can ensure that inequality doesn't just run wild, that we are sharing things from the get-go. And then the last one is people-powered, and it's the one I'm most passionate about. We need everyone to be part of these conversations, because as soon as you have a minority, a certain group of people making decisions, you will always have inequality. And so we need people to shape the decisions that shape their lives. And that includes us, but it also includes the more than human, right? There are organizations that are speaking about the rights of nature, speaking about ecocide law, speaking about Imagine the River was part of this organization. What would the river say around this decision that we're making? There's things like citizens' assemblies, there's things like participatory budgeting. And I think also language. We need to make these rooms and conversations accessible to all people so that people feel like they can have a say. As long as we keep speaking technical, academic language that is inaccessible, reports that are behind pay gates that people can't see, it's really difficult then for people to be part of a movement. So that is the fourth P, people powered. And yeah, I think those are four principles that can give you alternative ways of seeing our economy.
Wow, thank you so much, Thobile. Again, really, really valuable sharing there. And it's very interesting. So, Gerance, you sort of brought us from this view where we're seeing inequality as being structural, right? So, a situation where the ultra rich must always win. And you clearly said that, whilst we're tackling this bit, we need to call for a UN tax convention that, that taxes the rich, but also that ensures that multinational corporations pay their fair share so that mining affected communities are able to have social services, schools, hospitals, roads, bridges, etc. And you also mentioned the last thing that you said was that we need to fund the future. And I think this is where, you're sort of closing us off to say that whilst we're saying that we're taxing the rich, we're also funding the future for the next generation. And then Thobile, again, you've, sort of brought us into a very tangible things that we need to be thinking about. And yes, you gave us those 4 Ps, but what does an alternative economy look like? And I think my biggest takeaway from this is that we need to be measuring inequality. We need to measure what matters. This false narrative around GDP and growth doesn't make sense for everybody, and so we need to, start thinking about, and then you also said we need to prevent harm at the point of design. So looking at, alternatives like, circular production, and the last thing that you mentioned was language, which I think is, something that we keep thinking about when we're doing movement building. How are we making sure that no one is left behind from these conversations that we're having, and I think that's a call to action for all of us from the different points of sort of what we hold and where we are seated. I really, really want to appreciate all the valuable contributions. You've given us a lot to think about. And I know, we sort of designed this to be a conversation to ignite further conversations as we go, as we lead up to 4th of July. And again, I think it was Maliha who said that it was actually Thobile who said, we can't be thinking about Global Day to Fight Inequality only. It should be every day. So this is really a reminder, and I think all of you sort of touched on that in your contributions. I want to quickly, request that we have a Q&A/reflection session. Please feel free to just put up your hand, raise your hand from the chat, and I will call on your name. Please introduce yourself, where you're connecting from, and who you're asking the question to. And we'll do this for maybe another 7 minutes. And then we'll sort of go into now a session of where I'm inviting you to take collective action and what we're doing as Fight Inequality Alliance. So the floor is open. Anybody that would like to ask a question, reflection, anything that resonates, or anything that you're not in agreement with, it's a safe space. Okay, so I'm assuming that we are quite happy with where things are at. And again, I think I said that this is a conversation to ignite other conversations. And I'm hoping that we shall, find ourselves in our different spaces to keep having this conversation. Maybe I wanted to, maybe this wasn't part of the plan, but I would like to call on just like one or two people, like, what's your biggest takeaway from this conversation that we've had? And if no one volunteers, I am putting out a disclaimer that I'm going to volunteer somebody to share. And there's no right or wrong reflection. I think we just want to make sure that we're hearing from people. Nalini, you have been very active on the chat. Do you want to just share maybe one or two takeaways from the conversation that we've had? Nalini?
And thank you for calling me name. Yeah, I'm happy. But yes, as I listened to all of them, sorry, I can't on the camera. So we all have common challenge in front of us. And we can't take time anymore. So we need to work together, act together, and we can't work separately. We have to work collectively. Sometimes it looks like Sri Lankan situation is so pathetic, so vigorous. But in general, look at the 1% community which has our money, resource, and decision-making power, which I am like more into. So we need to work together because listening from Nepal, Pakistan, and Indonesia. So we need to work harder, more collectively in order to address the issues, as well as most importantly, we need to focus on the alternatives. Not rather than talking the challenges and issues which we need solution which will give hope for all of us. Otherwise we'll be depressed and talking about challenges and issues and violations. So let's talk about alternative common alternative for global alternative. And we need to think about the country-wise and the region-wise alternative. That is my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nalini. Much appreciated. We need to work together, act together, focus on alternatives. Very clear call to action for us and a clear reminder. Thank you. Daud, do you want to go ahead?
Can I say something?
Yes, Akumo, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. An amazing moderator you are. You're doing quite well. Listening to all the presenters, all were very on point and articulate. I'm Akumo Uko from Vihiga, Kenya. My takeaway from all the presenters is that there is power in solidarity. So we, the 99, must ensure that we stay united so that we can be able to address the issues. Doesn't matter from where we are, but the important thing that is that we are the majority. We, the 99, are the majority. So our voices must be heard from whichever places where we are, because there is power in numbers. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Akumu. Very clear that you've literally done it for me in terms of what collective action needs to look like moving forward. Thank you. So power in solidarity, we are the 99%, so we're the majority and our voices must be heard. Daud, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, Mother. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to our presenters. I think for me, to take away something that has just like sunk really for me, I think the presentation by Maliha about the queer community and women, so it just made me to think, to say, so these are the people that you'd find that they're working so hard in the community, and yet whilst we're looking at the inequality, and sometimes you just look at about it, income and whatnot, but these are the people that have been struggling to survive, and that's something that we need to put an alarm on, raise and talk about it quite a lot, because that's another subset of inequality that is rarely spoken about. And another issue, I think it's about water and how that is slowly turning into a crisis. And we know it is going to be the very same people that sometimes we talk less about that are going to be impacted. And I think for me, something to think about is how do we then even make the people, because sometimes the people that are suffering from these things might not know that these are the products of inequality. So how do we then as a movement begin to raise more awareness and then make them more aware to say, comrades, this is not an accident. It is happening because A, B, and C is happening. And sometimes the voice of the politicians is more louder, where it promises GDP, employment, and all that. But there is a suffering that nobody talks about: access to water, fertile land which is being damaged, and whatnot. So I think we need to speak more of that. So yeah, thank you so much, comrades.
Thank you so much, Dao. Thank you, comrade. So we have a few minutes. I would like to request each of the speakers to just share what is one thing that you would like us to prioritize when we think about Global Day to Fight Inequality. Just in one sentence, what should the movement prioritize? One sentence. Carol, do you want to start us off?
I think we've already shared it, but like it would be solidarity, and the realization and the acknowledgement of the intersectionality of struggle, and that all our struggles are interconnected. And so, there's no, we cannot continue, we cannot fight inequality in silos. So we need to be intersectional in our approaches, and most of it means that because I cannot do everything, I'll be in solidarity with our siblings around the world who are fighting who are fighting, and no struggle there's no hierarchy in struggle. We are all struggling, and so we need to be intersectional in it.
Thank you so much, Carol. Maliha?
We need to focus on access to economic and social justice, as my fellow comrade Carol has mentioned. So social justice and solidarity for everyone. And we should prioritize in our campaign that equality in accessing safe and respectable source of earning is important for everyone and should be accessible for everyone.
Super. Thank you so much, Maliha. Rajan?
Okay, for me, I agree with the colleagues, and for me awareness is the first step, I would say, because when people understand the causes and impacts of inequality, so they are more likely to support for fair policies and challenges and the discriminations, and they would advocate for equal rights and opportunities for everyone. So sometimes the people who are living in the area, so they might not be aware about the structural inequalities that they are facing, since their generations. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajan. Sigit?
For me or for us, build the people power and solidarity should be the focus on this global day of action, because it will collect and gather the real power from the people to take the pressure, to take the political pressure on this regime that keep the inequality, injustices on the to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigit. Gerance?
I think each and every organization have their own strength. So let us continue to push, within our own strengths at the same time, also like making sure that we understand there's intersectionality between these things and also cross-sharing between the organization. Because as what Carol has said, we cannot work in silos and work in silos and at the same time promising to win. So that's what I'll say. And we should not praise the billionaires. It's time for us now to understand that they're the ones who are literally creating this inequality. We should not be looking forward to be a billionaire. We should look forward to provide a safe space and income for everyone. Over.
Thank you, Gerance. And finally, Thobile.
I had to giggle at that one. Yeah, it's a real aspiration, but I think it's a reminding people of who they truly are, that these ideas and solutions are within us and that they've existed for many decades. People have been living in indigenous communities and ancient wisdom. We know what is right and we can feel in our bodies when there is inequality. So it's not about saying, oh, we need a new thing. It's about going back to communities and saying, bring your wisdom. You already have the ideas. And that's really going back to that asset-based community development approach, remembering that people with lived experience have the best solutions because they know the problems firsthand. And then also just embracing plurality, right? It's not going to be one thing that solves everything. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And that's why, to build on Gerance's point, we need each other. We need the different strengths that everybody in this room has. And so, yeah, more together, I would say.
Great. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Thobile. Thank you. I would like to really say that I think this for me has been a very exciting conversation. I think we have a lot to work with as a movement. We are co-opting more people into our movement, understand the work that we're doing, but also to say that this is for us. Accountability starts from us, and the onus is on us to carry the messaging, but also to keep thinking about what these alternatives look like, to call out the super rich and not be afraid of that, because I think in terms of where the aspirations are for many, it's, to amass so much wealth. But I'm hoping that folks on this call are going to, carry this messaging and say that, no, actually, we need to be taxing the rich. We need to be calling for taxing of the rich so that we have social services, so that we are living dignified lives, so that we are, building an economy that serves each and every one of us, but also ensuring that we are funding the future, which was very profound. At this moment, I want to say a very, very big thank you to all of you that have joined this conversation. Just to share that we have another conversation similar to this that will be happening in a different, sort of time zone. So later this afternoon. So if you would like to also join that conversation, please feel free to register on Zoom. I also want to remind you that we have a cost of living petition that we put out early this year that is part of our bigger campaign as Fight Inequality Alliance. So my invitation to you is to click on the link that has been shared in the chat, kindly sign and also share with your friends, your family, your associates. We are running this until the end of the year because this is part of our mobilization. And also just to say that keep an eye out on 4th of July. There's a lot that is happening that Fight Inequality Alliance, national alliances across the globe are organizing. So please see the interesting alternatives that are being built, the different activities that are being planned. A lot of them will be very active on the socials, and we'll also be sharing a lot of that during the rest of the month and moving on to the year. So again, a very big thank you to all of you. Thank you to all my colleagues at Fight Inequality Alliance for holding the fort and also organizing this. And I would like to request that I bow out now. Again, my name is Martha Tukahira. I'm from Uganda and I'm the Africa Regional Coordinator. I'm hoping that we can connect at some point. Have a good